Okay, everybody, my iPad has 8 o'clock, so we'll call the meeting in the Metropolitan Sewerage District to order. Welcome to all of our guests. Commissioner Lytle is anticipated to join us virtually. Every other commissioner is in the room. You want to go through the virtual meeting guidance, Cassie?
Good morning, commissioners, members of the public, and staff. To help us have a smooth meeting, I'm going to review just a few decorum rules for all. While the commission and staff are in person, we are still offering a Zoom option so members of the public can attend. If you are attending virtually and would like to speak, you can do so during appearances by the public. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and streamed live on YouTube, and the public chat has been disabled, but you can still send messages to the host if need be. Finally, commissioners, please use your microphones while speaking and make sure your voice is directed towards the mic. When you're not speaking, please ensure that your mic is off so others can utilize the mics. As a reminder, only 3 of the table mics can be live at a time. Also, please state your name before speaking for those who may be joining us via Zoom. Those are the decorum rules of the District Commission. Thank you for following them, and let's have a great meeting.
Okay, thank you, Cassie, and I see Commissioner Lytle has joined virtually. Any appearances by the public? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the consent calendar. We have the minutes from the last meeting, cash statement capital. We have a few review and approval of sanitary extensions, then transaction amount for the WPDES permit application project. That's for a consultant that's been assisting us with on various aspects of flow on that. Any questions? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Commissioner Bookland, I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
Motion by Commissioner Bookland, second by
Commissioner Freeze, I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Freeze. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And opposed?
Commissioner Clark, Tom, I'll abstain.
Okay, you're abstaining because you were absent for the last meeting. Okay, so Commissioner Clark will abstain. Okay, that motion carries. We'll move on to topics. The Compliance Maintenance Annual Report. Jacob?
Hello, everyone. I am Jacob Kazitsky. I am the new Process and Regulatory Performance Engineer, started here in January. So we'll be talking about the Compliance Maintenance Annual Report for 2025. These are the legal requirements supporting this report. The purpose is protecting public health, an educational tool. Basically, this is an audit that identifies our improvement areas and initiates new projects if there are any needed. It is graded on a letter grading system following the pattern that's displayed in the presentation there. And so to jump into it, our 2025 CMAR was a very good one. It did show an improvement over the 2024 CMAR. We got A's in every category except for in the Biosolids quality and management. Based on the weighting that they apply to these different areas, our GPA was a 3.59. So Biosolids management has always been a tricky one on the CMAR. It is graded with a very harsh curve. And so we lost 30 points off of one question because of nitrogen over application. So that was based on the rate calculation and the methodology. We are trying several things to improve that. It is important to note that that was just one farm field, 2 farm field IDs out of 327. And so that was the one instance where even though we have a buffer of nitrogen that we account for based on testing that came in a little bit later in the past than we were anticipating, or it was when we were anticipating it, but it does have a little bit of a lag behind when we were doing the field application. That was over-applied. Another thing that is targeting improvement in that area is a new database, which will reduce the latency of getting those test results. But overall, the number of applications was 2 out of 327, and we will be having Zach Thompson coming up after me to speak more to our biosolids management policy. The other area that requires a response on the CMAR is TFOs and SSOs, which are treatment facility overflows and sanitary sewer overflows. Those were up a little bit from where we were at in 2024. So this is our graph over the last several years. For the SSOs, there were 2 small ones, relatively. We had one in February, one in October, but the main one that is highlighted there is in August. There was the large overflow where the 36-inch force main failed and required some substantial temporary repairs followed by long-term repair plans. For TFOs, again, volume-wise, most of these were relatively small, but those were from various sources, generally resulting in retraining, procedural review, and in a few cases, some equipment modifications. I won't go through every one, but there is another slide which highlights a couple more. And if there's any further questions about those, we can talk about them individually. So for a resolution, we are proposing that we will continue to refine rate calculation methodology and data management for the biosolids management aspect where we did not receive a or a B. Those will be our actions to prevent, and then as far as the actual SSOs and TFOs, we will continue to follow our individual, the individual actions that were described as the resolution for each one of those, with the goal of having our certification and submission by June 30th for this resolution. Are there any questions?
Anybody have any questions? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the resolution?
Commissioner Meyer, I'll make that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Meyer, second by Commissioner Murphy. Ken tried to get his thing on, it wasn't working. So we'll go with Brad Beadham. Any discussion, further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And any opposed? None, motion carries. That will take us to Zach Thompson, who's going to talk more about the biosolids.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Zach Thompson, the Biosolids Specialist. I'm going to give a little presentation today on the nutrient land application requirements and hopefully have a better understanding how these over-applications happen and walk you through some of the processes. So in the background of biosolids nutrient management requirements, I'm going to talk about how we manage the application of nitrogen in biosolids and then have a slide on some key takeaways. As far as the regulatory guidelines, we follow Wisconsin Administrative Code NR 204. We use University of Wisconsin Publication A2809, NRCS 590 plan, and then we have an approved sludge management plan with the Department of Natural Resources that kind of all these work together. It's all in the nutrient management plan or the sludge management plan, and the last thing on there, I have the biosolids rates are managed by the nitrogen needs of the crop. So I just wanted to end with that and kind of lead into my next slide here and discuss what goes into creating these application rates and some of the challenges we have. So this is a snip from UWA 2809. It kind of shows the target ranges for nitrogen. So when we're coming up with our nitrogen rates, things to consider, we have the crop to be grown, previous crop, soil type, yield potential. So there are different yield potentials for different soil types. We have to determine if it's a high or a standard rate field. Any other nitrogen credits, so previous biosolids or manure applications or any commercially applied fertilizer. Then we also have a 10-pound buffer that we put in there just to account for some of those different test results. So you can see the red circle on the left, that would be a high yield potential column, and then the circle on the right is a standard yield potential column for nitrogen rates. So for an example field, say the crop to grow is going to be corn, the previous crop was soybeans, high yield potential, that circled column there, our recommended N would be 140 pounds per acre. So that's where we start with, and then we have to subtract off, if there were any other nitrogen credits, whether it be commercial fertilizer or manure applications. The little thing there, so right there for that field, be 115 pounds target N application. Determining the nitrogen content. So we take, every day that we haul, we pull a daily grab sample. Those daily grabs are turned into composite weekly samples. There's a 1 to 2 week turnaround from the lab when we take those samples to when we receive the information. It's analyzed for nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus. Once we do have that lab information, we use the UW SNAP Plus nutrient calculator, enter that in there, and then we do incorporation, so that blue highlighted box there, the 25.6, that is 25.6 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 gallons of biosolids. So that's how we determine, what the nutrient content is of the sludge. Then we take that information to determine our application rate. So we're going to assume the application is taking place of the week of September 7th. We use the 3 most recent data points we have for nitrogen content to determine what we're going to use for pounds of N per 1,000 gallons. So the most 3 recent ones highlighted in yellow there, you can see it was 2 weeks. So we're applying on the 7th the information from the 3rd, the 10th, and the 24th. The average of those 22.7. So the N rec was 115 divided by 22.7. We're going to round that down to about 5,000 gallons per acre. So that's what our application rate will be. The challenge with that, I had mentioned, we're applying based on the recent averages that we have versus when we report what we actually put on, it was what we did at the time of the application. There's that little box in the corner there you can't see, but there was, so the 3 yellow highlights was our average. That green of the 25 would have come back maybe sometime the week of the 7th, so we could have adjusted our average. It might have been midweek. And then the 9-7 result is actually 25.6. You can't see it right there. So if you go back to what our application was, we did our 5,000 gallons per acre. It wasn't at the 22.7 average we were using, it was at the 25.6. So it actually came back at 128 pounds of nitrogen per acre. So when you go back and reverse our math there, 128 plus, 0 for manure plus the 15 pounds commercial is 143 total, when our recommended N was 140. So we had our 10-pound buffer in there, but the addition, that higher sample came back, so it used up that 10-pound buffer, and then we still went over 3 pounds. So that's a good scenario of how that happens. And we're going over, a few pounds, which I should have pointed out in the one chart. So that 140, that was the mid. There's ranges in those. So that the 140 is the middle of the range. So the range for that nitrogen would have been like 120 to 160. So we're still not going over the top of that range, but it is over what we consider, the recommended N. Key takeaways. I want to point out, we're following the approved guidelines and processes used to determine the biosolids application rate. That's all. It's all in our approved sludge management plan. We do have that practice where we add that 10 pounds additional buffer the inability to obtain real-time nitrogen data. So we're 1 to 2 weeks, once we pull that sample, till we actually get the results, in the applications that's taken place already. And then, over applications continue to be minimized. So, there's very few of them, and when they do happen, the pounds of N that we go over are very minimal. Some continued research, looking at different technology that may increase the speed to get test results. We're always looking at different things there. There are some things that are used in like dairy manure that hasn't got to biosolids yet, so we keep looking into that to see if there's any advances. And then database improvements to increase efficiency. Once our new database is complete, we're hoping to get through some of the QA, QC checks faster. The system will be able to, I'm calculating all these stuff myself going into different systems. Hopefully, that new system will be able to pull all that, do it all for us a lot quicker. Thank you, and any questions?
I always have a question. I see that nitrogen values jumped up, and I'm wondering if there are seasonal differences in the nitrogen values. For example, do they go up in the fall and drop off in the spring? Or I'm just wondering, do you see seasonal differences in the amount of nitrogen that could help you predict, what might be there? You look over the years, for example.
We do. I have a chart of, the previous 7 years, and you can see there are some differences. Not always at the same time, but there are some spikes, and usually they're pretty minimal. Within 3 pounds. But very occasionally, you get some of them high ones. It might only be once a year. They're somewhat unpredictable.
So I got a question. It seems that the narrowing of the whole process is testing. It just takes that amount of time to do all the testing to get the nitrogen? There's no way to speed that up? No, there isn't. Okay. So that seems to be the narrowing, and if everything relates to the testing, I don't know how that other stuff's all going to help, but still, regardless of what you do, it takes 2 weeks to get the test results. That's 2 weeks. Greg?
So I might have missed it on the first slide when you were calculating what the target for each field was. Does this start with a soil sample for each farm, or is this just only based on cropland? And notification.
It's just based on, so to get your initial recommended N per acre, it's based on the crop to grow, previous crop, and then the soil type. Every soil type has a H or a
bioavailability for what's in there.
What the yield capacity is, and so
Okay.
it might allow more nitrogen.
I was just surprised that it didn't require knowing where you started, right, was my question. So
Correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Ezra?
One other clarifier, just to make sure I was understanding it right. So you're guided by the extension publication, and it gives you that recommended number, but within a range, right?
Correct.
But then DNR and CMAR, kind of the regulatory side, I'll call it, that number that matters and you're dinged pretty bad in the grading is if you went an ounce over that midpoint, sort of that recommendation number.
Correct, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. There has to be a number, and as soon as you go over that,
right,
it's considered an over application.
Sure. Although there's a reason to have a range, but that's the part that I'm going. But okay, thanks for the presentation. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
That will take us to the Executive Director Performance Evaluation process.
You jump right in? Sure.
Yeah, go ahead, Ezra.
All right, well, Commissioner Meyer here. I am, as you may remember, I don't remember when it was exactly, but the Commission created a subcommittee on Executive Director Performance Evaluation, and three of us volunteered. That's Ken and Brad and myself, and we've been working on this since late last year to look into the process that we had and then think about what it might look like to come up with something that works a little better and is hopefully easier to administer going forward. And so to that end, we put out an RFP and landed MGT. You're going to meet Lee here in just a second. He's going to tell you a lot more about what we've been working on. But yeah, so we've been working with them for months now to come up with something new to present here and sort of trial run and then hopefully have locked in and use going forward. I think with that I'll turn it over to Lee so you can get into the details of what we've come up with so far.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Lee Szymborski from MGT. We're been very pleased to work with the commission, and I'm here to tell you about how we got to today's work, and we'll provide an overview. I know you have all the materials in the packet. And then I'll cover what are the key components to the performance evaluation system, and then where we go next. So what we did in working with the subcommittee and of course the commission is that we wanted to understand what were some of the things that were going to be important to address as the commission was seeking a new performance evaluation system. So we spent time talking with all of you, my colleagues, including Ashley Eccles and Yolanda Housey, and I know I've talked to some of you as well. We interviewed all of you. We interviewed the directors' direct reports, and then we also did reach out to a number of cohort organizations to MMSD and to learn, what systems, what processes these use. Frankly, from what we found, that MMSD here is unique in terms of the type of process that you had been working on, but more important, what you sought to develop here. So with that as the background, we worked very closely and intensely with staff, with the subcommittee. And what we think was the result of that was a very collaborative process that looked to address a number of things, and I'll cover those real quickly. So in our review and in our conversations with everybody, we identified a number of things that people hoped the new process would address, which included that the previous process was too lengthy. It also did not provide for an extensive amount of feedback, and the previous process was too clunky. In addition to that, people had said to us that it was unclear how the director's goals were set in the beginning, and so this process looks to address that. The other criticism, if you will, of the previous process is that there was a limited connection between the tool that was being used and what would hope to be forward-looking goals. So there was other things identified is that there was no structured mid-year touch point. I know during Eric's tenure there has been deliberate effort to provide for more touch points. Process that we developed collaboratively looks to institutionalize that, if you will. And of course, as Eric's been spending more time in his position, it will process suggest a mid-year and an annual touch point for that. The other part of the process was looking to gather the input from other stakeholders, including the director's direct reports, and setting up a process in which that feedback would be held confidential. In other words, not identifying specific individuals, so that people would feel freely in which to provide their feedback, as well as a touch point with the ELC. And saw the information in the packet, which and we'll cover the process that's set up for all of the groups. So our goal for this evaluation process was to set up a system which was clear. It also provided a multi perspective. In other words, one that hits the commission, direct reports, and the ELC, with consistent competencies across all three groups. Now, some of the metrics are different because they relate specifically to that group, but by and large, all the competencies that have been developed, stretch across all three instruments. So I'll do a brief overview of the three instruments that have been developed here. As I mentioned, we have three tools, one for the commission, which has three parts to it, which I'll walk through. The second instrument is for the direct reports, two elements to that, and then finally a tool for the Employee Leadership Council, which will be done collaboratively, and all taken all together will then serve as information for the commission when they do the executive director's annual report. For the commission's evaluation tool, it has three components to it. One is a competency rubric which covers 9 competency areas. It is broken out into general, but as well as organizational performance. You'll find the tool is in your packet. I won't walk through that detail to detail, but we'll certainly spend our time here if there's any questions about what you found in your packet. Second component it provides for or allows for an open comment section. And I would add quickly to this is that the process begins with the executive director, providing to the commission a milestones report. So with that in hand, that would serve as a supplemental guide, if you will, for when you fill out the form. Of course, you have in your packet the tool. Our goal is to make that tool sent to all of you electronically, so you would fill that out online. If there's a need to accommodate that in a hard copy tool, we can do that as well. But our goal was to have that all done online. And we'll talk about this later. The idea when working with staff and in working with the subcommittee is that MGT would facilitate this process, at least for the first year. And then we think it's a good conversation to have is whether or not that this process moving forward could be self-administered. In other words, we exit, you take it over, and we'd be good to go. So back to this tool, again, competencies in which you have a rating. There are a definition to each one of the competencies. It further articulates 3 metrics for each of the competencies. The rating system is 1 through 4. It's a forced choice system, but it does provide an off-ramp for those areas in which you may not be familiar with or do not have enough information, and then you can, opt out there. And then finally, there's an area for open comments, and then importantly, the third part of this is an opportunity to weigh in on what the commission believes should be the director's next upcoming goals. That, of course, will be supplemented, by the director providing, through his milestones memo, suggestion for his upcoming goals. One of the significant points of conversation that we had with staff and with the subcommittee, as we look to develop this tool that does then provide an opportunity for setting goals, is acknowledging that the director's goals should be limited to an amount that can be accomplished, within the review period of time. We all have great ambitions, and of course, you've got a strategic plan in place, which the director will reference the strategic plan. But our idea was, and our conversation was, is that let's make sure that the goals are achievable during the period of time, and that will kind of work itself out through the goal setting process that we'll look to facilitate very soon here. So the second tool is one that was developed for the executive director's direct reports. It has two components to that. One is the competency rubric, which mirrors in part what was developed for the commission. Not all elements, not all competencies are in this tool as what you will find in the commissioner's tool, but the themes are the same. The differences is that we ask the commission to weigh in on organizational elements as well as those related to external relations. But other than that, this tool for the direct reports, tracks in the same fashion on the competency side of things. The metric definitions are a little bit different because, of course, it relates to where people sit in the organization and their relationship to the executive director. This also provides a component for open feedback, and again, it will be done online. For this first year, it would come back to MGT. We would look to summarize all that, report it out to the commission, and our goal is to allow for a system that invites frank and candid feedback without identifying, who the respondent was. So, and as I mentioned, these are the things that we looked to strengthen, and this was developed not only in conjunction with the subcommittee and staff, but we also had conversations with direct reports to get to where we are today. And finally, the third tool is one for the Employee Leadership Council. It is one form. It looks to focus on these competencies, with the idea being is that the ELC leadership would work collaboratively together to provide the input to this. And so with all of that, again, we combine that with the other two tools, all coming up with a collaborative process to provide feedback. So here's where we go next. We're looking to kick this process off next month. Hard to believe it's almost July already, but kick this off next month, where we would do a goal-setting session, and so I will, or one of my colleagues will come back and commission and talk about what the director's next 6 months goals would be, and then we'll look to draft those goals, have you sign off on them, and then begin the process. A significant part of the conversation that the subcommittee had along with staff was, given where we are at in the development process here, and trying to dovetail that into the annual calendar and the review process. We looked to develop this rhythm and cadence, and that's why we believe it would be important to kick off at this time. In September, we would understanding when certain members of the ELC come on and off in their leadership positions, we would look to begin coordinating with them on their feedback in September of this year. In October, we would begin the annual review process for the director by kicking off where the director would provide his milestones memo. The survey tools would be issued to the commission as well as to the direct reports, with the ideas that then in November we would have the feedback from the ELC returned, as well as direct reports and the commission. We would come back, have a review at the end of the year for discussion on the commissions, as well as the direct reports, as well as the ELC's feedback and results. And all with the goal of, in the first part of next year, to review the evaluation results, final results, establish goals for the upcoming year, and then assess the process. Again, how well did this work? Did we achieve our goals? Was it as streamlined and as easy to use as what you told us in the beginning was one of your goals? And then make any adjustments as may be required or so. So I know that's a quick overview. You've got the materials again in your packet, and we're happy to entertain any questions, comments.
Commissioner Buckland, again, I have questions or comments. So the commission just went through a process approving the strategic plan for the next upcoming years. And I think that this needs to be tied to the goals and KPIs for the strategic plan. I see that it's really important to tie the two together. And unfortunately, I see a disconnect here. So, and it's a disconnect that I've brought up actually in the past. So the disconnect is, I'm looking through the core competencies that you include, the 6 ones, so strategic, leadership, trust and transparency, performance management, collaboration, teamwork, leadership development, organizational culture. all this speaks to me about organizational excellence. I don't see that in the strategic plan included. We've talked about it before, but these are all performance indicators, core competencies that I think are part of organizational excellence. And so I see that as a disconnect between this evaluation and the strategic plan. So I think that's my comment, and I don't know how we're going to exactly resolve it, but I want to just make that comment.
I've got a question and an observation. First question is, how many people do you see as the direct reports? 3? Or?
Eric Dundee, Executive Director, so there would be 4. So there's 3 directors and then our Manager of Public Affairs and Communication.
Okay, so, okay. Okay, the reason I bring that up is because Commissioner will recall a few years ago, we had issues when there were only 2 direct reports. So my observation, kind of maybe getting to your comment, Beth, is that, I'm trying to think how best to say it, is that the performance review is being judged on his means and methods to obtain the ideas or the concepts that we have within the strategic plan. So you're not necessarily grading him on each individual aspect of the strategic plan. You're grading, what I see, I don't know if this is what you guys intended or not, is the means and methods to obtain those ideals. You're not necessarily grading fully on the ideals, you're doing it. Now, there may be goals that are much more specific to him, and that's where there's going to be some issues, I suppose, in the long run, as you're going to have goals, they're running goals that are achievable in a year, but there are aspects of the strategic plan that you may want to have a goal, but it's not necessarily, could take more than a year to achieve. So, you know, I think those are kind of, they get to that idea of the stretch goals that you talked about in here, is how do you meld those two together? And then, you know, the other aspect we had in prior reviews, I always question this, but, you know, there was this feeling by the previous, that the district's goals should be the goals in which the person is judged, the executive director, and I think that's wrong, because what we found is that the means and methods to get to those goals can cause an awful lot of angst in an organization. And so I'm thinking that appropriate not just have person, you need to have those personal type of goals and the means and methods to get to somewhere, so that you don't have problems in the organization that develop. Because, you know, the method to get to something, you know, is maybe just as important as the completion of the goal.
I hear what you're saying, and I agree, but I also need to push back and think there has to be some means of connecting the two. And I don't see that we have that yet. And so, and I don't know how to exactly get there, but I do think that there needs to be some kind of a connection. We ran into this kind of a roadblock in the past, and I just think that we need to somehow find a way to work through it. And I don't have the answer, but I'm just wondering if there is a way that we could somehow tie the two better than what we have right now. And yeah, that's, I guess, my comment.
And that may arise as we develop the goals this fall. Okay, Eric?
Yeah, Eric Dundee, Executive Director. So, hearing these concerns and the comments makes me realize as a commission, as you get the strategic reporting, so we went through the commission reporting calendar, and we're gonna have 3-year plan, progress updates. We're gonna have KPI updates. We should make that a point with the commission as you get those updates to either be noting in that report, you know, as a comment back to us, as staff, or an executive director goal or something that we can start to just keep those notes, and see where then when we have a checkpoint at the end of the year, when we start the process again, talk about, okay, here's the things we've heard based on those reports. How do we make this, more connected?
And I would add to that, Eric, is that, you know, as you provide those updates, perhaps either provide a link to those updates through your milestones report.
Okay.
I might just chime in too on this. We're trying to, to balance what Tom talked about, this difference, but also heavy overlap between organizational goals and the ED's performance goals at each of these iterations. And, I think one of the ways that this process does that is sort of in the combination of things that are in core competencies that we're looking at always. Those are sort of that where we get the consistency Lee pointed to. Those aren't changing every 6 months. They're always there. They're competencies we're looking for. And I know, I hear what you're saying, Beth, but I know I see some certainly very strong kind of coordination between those and then things that we have in the strategic plan. Maybe not one-to-one. We didn't crosswalk that maybe super tightly as I suppose we could. But then the goal setting process allows us to kind of fill in for these next 6 months and the key things that need to happen, and the executive director's role in that. Like Tom says, how are you going to help to make those things come true? We have that opportunity in the goals to hone in on that part of it. So in combination, it feels like we kind of get a pretty comprehensive chance to look at all those dimensions of it. Not saying it's perfect, but it's that's kind of how we thought about it and tried to tackle all those different dimensions of it.
Okay.
If I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and so in addition to what, Ezra is saying, I would also encourage you all to look at the second part to the commissioner's tool as that which weighs in on annual goals, including the strategic plan. That open project goal achievement and open comment section to the evaluation would, and as we refine this process, but would be that opportunity, because the director's goals, of course, will change on an annual basis. But there are also some the competencies at the front end of the tool are what you expect on an ongoing basis. As the commissioner mentioned, it's the means and the methods to attain the annual goals that seeks to check into. But greatly appreciate the feedback.
Okay, well, thank you. I want to thank the committee for their work to date on this. There was a lot of time, a lot of effort. It's appreciated. Brad?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to say that I agree with the previous comments about how the strategic plan can come alive as part of this evaluation process. And I think that tying Eric's goals to the strategic plan in some way is a good way to start. I look at the evaluation tool and I see the strategic plan included in the core competencies. It's included in the first one, strategic leadership. I think by tying Eric's goals directly to that on a semi-annual basis, month's goals and the annual goals, we can make sure that the strategic plan is clearly incorporated into the evaluation process. But the reason I wanted to speak was not to say that, but to thank Eric and Amy for all of their work working with the subcommittee and MGT. They did a very good job refining the survey instruments and getting us to the point where we're at. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you to all. Thank you to MGT too.
Do one more.
Oh, was there-
Commissioner Meyer here, just one more sort of context setting things, zooming back out a little bit. So we, you'll recall maybe that part of the charge to this committee was eventually to get to a new policy or a replacement policy in our policy book on this whole performance review process. And so this allows me to bring up a second point. We are thinking we know we haven't hit it perfect with what we've come up with so far, despite great folks working on it, right? And so we're taking a continuous improvement approach to how we're gonna implement this. We're gonna have Lee's and his colleagues help in July, set goals. We'll look at those again towards the end of that 6-month period and end of the year. We'll do another process of goal setting for the period ahead of that. And so we have sort of 2 times here when we're gonna have MGT's help running through the whole process. And early next year, sort of after the January part is over, we'll look back and ask ourselves how to go. Lee mentioned it, back to goals we had at the outset as a commission and as a subcommittee, and just sort of feeling how it went. Was it incredibly onerous? Was it difficult? The commission complained. The survey took me an hour. All those kinds of looks at how well did this work for us, and then we can tweak, refine, make changes, and so we'll be back to the commission in first quarter somewhere of, end of first quarter, something like that next year with hopefully the final, refined, revised, version of the process and a policy for the policy book that we can adopt formally and get in that way. And then we'll truly be at the end. It's way more than Brad and Ken signed up for, but I think it's the completion of this process all the way to its actual, and so I just wanted to put that all in kind of, we got some immediate stuff we're going to do right now in July, but there's a bigger sort of sweep to the total process before we're really done. Big thanks to everyone who's been involved in it and is going to continue to be involved in it for a little bit longer before we're all done.
Okay, thank you.
I would just like to add to that and thank and recognize the team for the amount of work they put into this. I know it's been an incredible amount of time that was spent on this, and I think we've really moved forward. We do have some work ahead to do, but I think it's made great progress. So thank you, everybody, for all the time you put into it.
Okay. So we need a motion to approve the plan, the resolution. Okay, do we have a motion to approve the resolution? 2026-611R8 adopts this.
Motion?
Motion by Commissioner LaCella, second by?
I'll second here, Commissioner Lytle.
Second by Commissioner Lytle. Oh, I'm sorry, Patrick, did you have your hand up before or not? No.
I was just raising it for the either the motion or the second.
Okay, thank you. I didn't want to have missed it. Any further comments or discussion? None. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. That will take us to the Executive Director update.
Yeah, thank you. I actually have 3 items today. So the first one is an update on the sewer use ordinance. So we have officially closed the comment period to that. We did receive comments at the public hearing and then formal comments brought to us via email in the open comment process. So the update here is that we are working on it. We appreciate all those that provided comments. We can kind of put those into themes and boxes that our legal team and then district staff are working through right now. So we do expect to be back at the next meeting with those revisions for that. So just want to thank all those who did come and comment in person or sent those in later. Second item is just a quick update on our permit, our WPDS permit. We do have a closed session coming up, so if you have questions, please wait till then. But I am providing notice that there was no other challenges to our permit before the closure of the period. And then the third one is related to the weather that we had yesterday. Just note that we did have some power outages. We are still maintaining coverage of generators at stations for 2 different customer communities. We're also preparing for whatever could be brought today. But otherwise, no other update there, no big concerns or issues. We did have our emergency response go through the night and continues. Thank you.
Thank you. That takes us to commission reports. I think we've pretty much covered everything for you guys. So that, any report, Greg?
Yeah, the Financial Committee, Commissioner Freeze, the Financial Committee met last week, and reviewed the first quarter, financial report. And just to remind the Commission, the way this is working currently, unless you would like something different, is the financial report is going to come to the Financial Committee quarterly and be reviewed. And in this case, the review was, I would say, largely good. Patrick's on and Dan is here. We did not have any issues with the quarterly report. We had some recommendations for how the 27 budget could be prepared slightly differently to make that report easier to do. But that all said, the quarterly report was good. So I believe Cassie is sending the financial subcommittee out to all commissioners. So if you want to see more details on especially the quarterly reports, by all means, join that meeting. I think we always have a virtual option, of course, but that one for this past meeting was only virtual. And other than that, we have another meeting set for July 20th, where we have a few updates planned in terms of from Ben on how Wells Fargo is going to be managed, our account there, and from me with regard to the oversight statutorily by the City of Madison. There's a statute that I'll say places some responsibility on the City of Madison. The largest city in the district has some statutory duty. So that's it for me. Thank you. Oh, Dan, go ahead. For the policy book, yeah, sorry about that. Thank you. So this is, I guess, an open question. So much like you mentioned, Ezra, for the how we proceed, woven into the policy book, the Commission's policy book, are financial stuff. And if you recall, we redid the how much we need to carry over year to year. We redid that one policy probably 6-8 months ago at this point. But there's a whole bunch of other parts of the Commission book that could be redone that touch financial issues. And it's a big job. Arguably, you could and maybe should elevate the entire rewrite of the policy book and do that all at one time. And that is a task that is, I think, too big for a subcommittee and probably too big for staff to take on as just an extra thing. So I see Eric nodding. So I guess the open question to the Commission is, one, do we want to pursue that, and when do we want to pursue it, and how urgently is that to pursue? And then two, do we want to have staff bring a resolution to go to RFP to get somebody to help us do that, which would also entitle, I suspect, significant amount of work from the commission, right? So I was not part of the commission when that was rewritten, some time ago, but there were a number of sessions. Michael really led that, and there were a number of commission sessions that went through, and the commission set that, but Michael really led that process, and I don't know if he had a consultant help him to do that or not, but, so that is an open question for discussion, as to how we would like staff to proceed at Eric's group.
What I would suggest is that because even if you have a consultant, there's still gonna be work for staff. So what I would suggest is that we have kind of like a study session on this at some point to figure out those questions. If and when we wanna do it, and if we do, how we do it, and how that works in, I guess the biggest thing is how that works into the staff plan right now, you know, because my understanding, having worked with a lot of consultants, they suck up as much staff time, and sometimes it makes it seem like it would have been easier doing it yourself. So, could we, in sometime in the next couple months, probably put that on?
Yeah, so I already had it on my, agenda to come back with a commission work plan discussion based on the 3-year plan. As we
Okay.
finish up some of these other projects, the strategic plan and the executive director performance, we would do that. I will just say, based on workload of staff, this is not a 2026, implementation thing, but we can have the discussion in 2026 to prepare for what that looks like. Because if we know the commission's priorities, then we can decide what we need for.
So we'll take it up as part of the whole commission work plan that you're,
Correct.
okay. And so when, do you know, have an idea when we'll see?
It's probably gonna be like a fourth quarter after budget type of
Okay.
thing, so.
Okay, so that kind of puts it off toward the end of, after November, December. Okay. Okay, everybody seems okay with that? That will then take us to regulatory and legal. Vanessa?
Good morning, Commissioners. Vanessa Wishart, Legal Counsel for the district. We included a regulatory report with your packet for this meeting. I just want to note one thing, that we'll be participating in, on behalf of the district, is that the Department of Natural Resources is going to hold a listening session on, June 19th for how they implement the new statutes regarding PFAS, and specifically that municipal grant program, and how funding is, how stakeholders want funding to be allocated under that grant program. So I will be attending that and can report back at the next commission meeting on that. Then I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has about anything else included in that regulatory report.
I don't see anybody with any questions. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Future meeting schedules in the packet. So what we just heard is that whole idea with the finance policies will be taken up probably the fourth quarter of this year after the budget, and then see how it works within the whole commission work plan. So that takes us to the commission may convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851G for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the commission who is rendering advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the commission with respect to litigation in which it is likely to become involved regarding WPDES permit Wisconsin, WI, I should say, 0024597-10-0, issued to the district. We have a motion to go into closed session.
Commissioner Clark, I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Clark, second by
Commissioner
Bookland to go into closed session. Cassie?
Commissioner Bookland,
Aye.
Commissioner Clark,
Aye.
Commissioner Freeze,
Aye.
Commissioner Hovell,
Aye.
Commissioner Lankella,
Aye.
Commissioner Lytle,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Murphy,
Aye.
Commissioner Pulp.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. We'll move into closed session. Okay, so, we had a motion by Commissioner Clark, second by Commissioner Meyer to go into open session. And we did a roll call vote, all were ayes. So, I'm just gonna report that we had an update to the challenge that we've made to the WPDES permit. Then, that takes us off of that. Any future agenda topics? Any other business? Ken?
Motion to adjourn, Commissioner
Motion by
Clark.
Commissioner Clark, second by
Commissioner
second by Commissioner Freeze to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody.